Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Microsoft Today podcast. Today's podcast is being recorded on February 20th, 2019. And in this podcast, we're going to cover Microsoft's AI for Good initiatives and the templates for humanity hashtag. But before we get started, I just have a couple of things to catch you up on. First thing, sorry about not having an episode last week. I went snowboarding 2 weekends ago, and a gentleman ran into me full speed on the slopes in Vermont. And so I was out of the office all last week. I was pretty banged up, but I'm fully recovered now. I'm back to 100% streak. So that's the reason for not having a episode last week. So I'm sorry about that. Again, I'm going to try to stick to 1 to 2 episodes per week. But this week I may have 3 episodes, and that's because I started recording 1 episode, and then as what usually happens when I start doing my research, I just keep adding more and more details. And so on top of this episode, look for in the next 2 to 3 days, 2 more episodes. And so the next 2 episodes following this one are Microsoft Docs. So docs.microsoft.com. So Microsoft's completely revamping their entire documentation framework for all of their support documentations and their products. And we're going to discuss that in depth. And I do have some questions out to the Docs team. So if there's anybody on the Docs team, please reach out to me at Brad Grew or at MSFT Today on Twitter. I would love to have someone from the Docs team, at least for a short interview or just to discuss, or maybe just an email Q&A for this podcast. And then the next podcast following that one is the new Microsoft blogs. So I'm not sure if you guys follow Microsoft on Twitter. We curate all of Microsoft's blogs at msft.today, our website. And we do that because it's so hard to keep track of all their products and all their blogs. And so it's just a centralized place where you can go and see all of their blogs. Well, Microsoft's come out and said, we know this. And so their TechNet blogs and MSDN blogs and all their old, their standalone engineer blogs and all their product blogs, they were just all over the place on different platforms. Some were WordPress, some were like internal usage stuff, some were .NET. And so now they are pushing everything on the back of the Microsoft Docs framework to new blog platforms. So they're all going to be centralized blogs. And so we're going to dive into that in a podcast following the Microsoft Docs podcast. Again, since all these are kind of interwoven together, I had intended to have them all within this podcast, but it just stretched out too long. And again, I apologize for that. I talk about it all the time, but please check the show notes because I do meticulous research and I give you access to pretty much everything I discuss, including links and backstories. And it takes me a good 4 to 6 hours per each blog post just on data gathering and research and documentation. And so I hope you're using those. My metrics on the website show that you guys are. And so thank you for that. But I just want to guys let you know, if you're only getting part of the podcast if you listen to it. We're going to eventually move to a video podcast. For those like video podcasts, it'll be on Twitch and YouTube. So it'll include the documentation and the links and stuff as we're doing that podcast. But for now, it's just the audio podcast and then back to the website. Okay, so enough rambling on about that. So now back to the content at hand, which is Microsoft's AI for Good initiatives, which were created to foster development and support for AI solutions that seek to benefit all of mankind. The 3 fronts for the AI for Good initiative are AI for Accessibility, AI for Earth, and AI for Humanitarian Action. Microsoft showcased the AI for Good initiatives at Microsoft Ignite back in September of 2018. Much of what we're going to be discussing on this episode is information included within those Ignite sessions, as well as the official websites and blogs of these initiatives. Again, check the show notes. Everything completely documented. If I mention something, there's probably a link to it in the show notes, and so help you dive into that. So first up, we're going to do AI for Accessibility. Microsoft's goal for AI for Accessibility is to amplify human capability, as they believe that AI can empower people with disabilities with tools that support independence and productivity as technology rapidly changes the way we live, learn, and work. Microsoft does this through grants, investments in technology, and expertise. So think of Microsoft as the thought leader in these spaces. So basically they're building frameworks, guidelines, solutions, bringing people together. That's what these initiatives are. It's not so much they're developing the products themselves, although sometimes they are through Microsoft Research or Microsoft Garage projects. Again, we've discussed some of those in previous podcasts, but for the most part, they're here to facilitate. Most of these initiatives are not to make money. Obviously, the information they learn from these initiatives, and as they build them and grow them out, they can produce and put into their business line of products. but nearly everything we're mentioning here is free or extremely reduced cost, or they're providing grants for people to do it, etc., etc. So with that in mind, we're going to dive into just a handful of the AI for accessibility projects that Microsoft currently has in development and in their products today. First up is Soundscape. And Soundscape is a really amazing thing, a really amazing technology developed by Microsoft Research that actually gives visualization to sound. So people who are visually impaired use Soundscape to see using spatial awareness. It's fantastic. There's a Microsoft Research podcast episode about this. I highly recommend you to look more up into the Soundscape. Again, hit those show notes. Next up is eye control. So Windows 10 APIs for controlling PCs via eye movements. You know, we've all seen Stephen Hawking and Steve Gleason or other folks that use Microsoft services and things, use eye tracking software to type and to interact. Those that are paralyzed, either quadriplegic, paraplegic, or they have limited mobility. The eye tracking really empowers them to utilize the resources they have available to actually be productive. And Microsoft, with the eye control, has APIs built into Windows 10 and the Windows App Framework, and that's free to use for anyone who develops apps for Windows. SwiftKey is a swipe keyboard that you can get for Android phones, and I think they have iOS now, I'm not sure. But basically they've come out with the SwiftKey symbols, which allow simplified communications for nonverbal users. So things kids that don't know how to talk, or kids with learning disabilities, they don't know how to speak, but they can use symbols to speak, much like you do emojis on your mobile phone. Then there's Immersive Reader. Immersive Reader reads text out loud, breaks it into syllables, and increases space between lines and letters for increasing reading comprehension. It's really cool. They built this into OneNote, and I know they're building it into other products as well. Again, check out Immersive Reader from OneNote to learn more about that. Then there's Microsoft Translator. We've discussed this in the previous episode of the podcast for their empowering in education. Basically, it empowers the deaf and or hearing impaired to get real-time translations from speech to text that they can see as their professor or teacher are teaching classes. Obviously, Translator works as a translator as well, but in this space, we're talking more about for accessibility purposes than we are for translation purposes. Then there's Helpicto, or Helpicto, which helps autistic individuals communicate via pictograms. So as many of you know, people with autism are generally very, very intelligent and smart, but they have problems communicating, and so Helpicto is for helping to communicate via pictograms. Then there's Seeing AI, and Seeing AI is a talking camera app for mobile phones for the visually impaired. So they point it at an item and it tells them what it is, or it reads text. And so that's another AI for accessibility project that is in development and in usage that is being used by people with disabilities every single day. And so with those in mind, we're going to listen to a short video. I've narrated it as best I could. If you want to see the actual video, see the show notes. But we're going to listen to this real quick, and then it's going to talk about, basically, it's going to have folks who are discussing the AI accessibility projects that I've just discussed here, and then we'll dive deeper into the overall initiative.
Text appears. We believe technology can empower everyone to achieve more. A man uses a wheelchair equipped with a computer.
We have so many people who are non-verbal, but still have so much to say.
A young man signs.
I want the exact same information that my hearing friends have.
On a smartphone, speech to translated text.
There are barriers to communication everywhere, but I think it's time we look at the barriers as opportunities.
A group wearing t-shirts. Ability. Imagine. Build. Enable.
To reach out to everyone.
And we're seeing this come to life. A woman with headset and a guide dog. Soundscape.
Soundscape fills in a lot of the mental map as you move.
Approaching intersection.
You can just put it in your pocket and go.
A man uses a wheelchair and computer. Eye control.
With ALS, you become locked in. But we see technology as a way to give back what ALS has taken away.
Touching icons on a tablet computer. SwiftKey symbols. Katie Struck.
There's no better feeling than to hear a child say something that they've wanted to say, and the look on their face after they've been able to say it.
A teacher and student. Learning tools.
When it's reading, I see spaces between the words. And it's easy to focus on.
Anjay realized that here was something that could change his life.
AI is opening the door to a new wave of possibilities. A lecture hall. Joseph Ajay, Microsoft Translator.
Now that I have my phone, I can see exactly what was said, and that's been a huge help to me.
The system is learning as it goes, and the accuracy has improved tremendously.
Gary Best.
Students can pick any language that they choose to receive the information. It's like we jumped into the future.
Amanda Bui.
Because communication is very important for all of us, and we just want to be together and not feel left out.
A man with dowels in round slots. Help Picto. Terry Bantoulon. To help autistic individuals communicate, we use images. Arthur's mother. I say something to Arthur, and the Help Picto app converts this instantly into pictograms, and then repeats it as a voice command. Go get dressed and brush your teeth. We can go back to having a more spontaneous communication. I think it really helps build relationships. A family portrait, Seeing AI, Eric Bridges.
Both my wife and I are totally blind, and we have a 3-year-old son that's in preschool. He can see, but his parents can't. So to be able to know what's going on at his school is everything. The Seeing AI app has the ability to allow me access to the visual world. Artificial intelligence is beginning to have an impact on the lives of people with disabilities, but it's only going to grow. There is still so much out there to be done.
And we are just getting started. Let's see what you can do. AI for accessibility. Microsoft. Microsoft.com/AI for accessibility.
So not only is Microsoft developing things itself through AI for accessibility, but they're also enabling others, and they're enabling others through grants. And so they've actually given out some grants, and we're just going to touch base on 4 of those now. There's many more at the AI for Accessibility website that you can view, but we're just going to go over a handful of those right now, which will hopefully give you an understanding of just how dedicated they are to this cause. The first is going to be Zyrobotics Readable Stories. So Zyrobotics is a company that has a Readable Stories app, which is a reading fluency solution based on STEM and aimed at improving early education literacy skills for young children with varying abilities. And they were the first ever grantee for Microsoft in the AI for Accessibility grant, and received $25 million. So apparently they're working on some really, really great stuff. Next up is iTherapy. iTherapy is improving communication skills for people with autism, among other cognitive learning disabilities, by enhancing their app, Inner Voice, with new capabilities to help people develop their language expression skills and assign meaning and dialogue via naturalized social interactions. So iTherapy has an app, Inner Voice, where they are utilizing AI to help those with autism and other learning disabilities, which is really, really cool. Next up are researchers at the University of Iowa are developing an intelligent application for people who are blind or with low vision to independently walk or jog around a 400-meter track, which can determine if someone is veering from their lane and delivers real-time feedback to help them stay on track. So we're going to have autonomous cars. Now we're going to have autonomous runners. So that's pretty cool that they can give a warning system for people on a 400-meter track, an oval track, that someone's coming into your lane. That's pretty awesome. Next up is, and finally the last grantee we're going to discuss is going to be the Frist Center for Autism and Innovation at Vanderbilt University, which is developing conversational tools that provide people with autism job interview training through meaningful interactions. So they're using this tool set to teach those with autism how to have meaningful interactions, which would hopefully help them be self-sustainable and get a job and maintain jobs and things like that. So that's awesome. And not just that. So if you are a developer, if you are an educational institution, if you are working on you have an app idea, Microsoft is accepting grantees all the time for this. Here's just a couple of bullet points for the AI for Accessibility grants. Microsoft is looking for individuals or teams who are not only passionate about making the world more inclusive, but also firmly rooted in the communities they intend to benefit. So not only they're looking for you to develop something to help people with disabilities, but they're looking for people who are embedded with people with disabilities as well. And Microsoft wants to invest in ideas that are developed by or with people with disabilities. So they're also looking to empower people with disabilities through this process. As we've seen with their Xbox Adaptive Controller, which we've discussed on past podcast episodes, and we've discussed quite frequently on Twitter, Microsoft has learned firsthand that whenever you're doing these things and I'm trying to empower people with disabilities, you need to actively engage them through the entire process. Otherwise, you're going to hand them an app or a solution that's not really relevant to their needs. It's what you thought it was, but since you don't live with those disabilities every day, you can't actually relate. So they're looking to not only get people engaged who have disabilities and empower them, but to make sure that those who are working within this space also are engaged. And then AI for Accessibility is a call to action for developers, NGOs, academics, researchers, and inventors to accelerate their work for people with disabilities. And this is a global program. There are no limitations. So around the world. So I know there's a lot of passionate folks in Eastern Europe and Russia and India and Pakistan who are developing, and I interact with frequently on Twitter. So like, guys, if you're a developer and you have a great app idea or a great AI for that you can help think with disabilities, apply for a grant. And for academic institutions, the grants can be distributed as unrestricted gifts to support a project's objective. I know there are a lot of researchers out there who are passionate about helping with these technologies. Microsoft is not limiting this to just businesses. If you're an academic institution, they actually just give you an unrestricted gift to use it on whatever you see fit. And if you would like to know where or how you can submit for a grant for the AI for accessibilities, check out the show notes at msft.today/podcast. Okay, 1 down, 2 to go. Next up is AI for Earth. And AI for Earth is a 5-year, $50 million Microsoft initiative that supports and partners with environmental groups and researchers while also providing grants. The official goal is helping to save the planet with data science. Many of the initiatives are also heavily dependent on the ever-expanding world of Windows IoT, or Internet of Things. Microsoft's AI for Earth has 4 key areas of focus, which are climate, agriculture, biodiversity, and water. With climate, the changing climate threatens human health, infrastructure, and natural systems. AI can give people more accurate climate predictions to help reduce the potential impacts. For agriculture, Microsoft says by 2050, farmers must produce more food on less arable land with less environmental impact to feed the world's increasing population. AI can help people monitor the health of farms in real time. And biodiversity, species are going extinct at an alarming rate. AI can help people accelerate the discovery, monitoring, and protection of biodiversity across our planet. And finally, water. In the next 2 decades, demand for fresh water is predicted to dramatically outpace supply. AI can help people model Earth's water supply to help us conserve and protect our fresh water. And much like AI for accessibility, Microsoft has as many forks in the fire for AI for Earth projects and APIs, including FarmBeats. Through sensors, drones, data analytics, AI, and connectivity solutions, Microsoft is enabling precision agriculture to improve yield while reducing resource consumption. Another AI for Earth project, Land Cover Mapping, helps to visualize everything that covers the Earth. The Microsoft AI platform and ArcGIS spatial mapping software enable precision conservation. This is actually one that's actually relevant to my day-to-day jobs. We use ArcGIS at my company. We are a construction management company, and this is something I'm definitely going to dive into and check out from the AI perspectives to see if I can use this in my day-to-day operations. We do work for government entities and things like that, so this could actually be something that I could help AI for Earth projects. We have, conservation projects. I'm actually working on a project now for endangered species, for environmental, using Power Apps and scraping some web data from the Department of Forest Services and from the Texas Parks and Wildlife and those sorts of data sources. And so I literally discovered this earlier today as I was researching for the podcast, and I'm really, really stoked. I think it's something that I'm definitely going to at least throw up in a lab and see if I can have some fun with it. And then another one, GeoAI Data Science VM, so a virtual machine, delivers geospatial analytics capabilities that improve the gathering, managing, and analyzing of geographic data in today's IoT-driven world. So this is an Azure-based system that does some really cool things. And the final AI for Earth project that we're going to talk about, again, there's a whole slew of them. If you check the notes, you can go to the AI for Earth webpage and you can see all the projects that they currently have working with partners and internally. The final one is Project Premonition, which are robotic insect traps, which are paired with cloud-scale genomics and machine learning algorithms, enabling biodiversity insight. Its aim is to detect pathogens before they cause outbreaks. So basically tracking mosquitoes and if they're carrying diseases, and you can model it. It's really, really cool. I watched a short little video on that one. It just, the things that they're doing with these large-scale IoT is just fascinating. It's just cool, really cool to see people pushing the envelope and moving us forward and progressing us faster and faster into the future. And so like the AI for accessibility, we're going to play a short video from Ignite, and they're talking about one of these projects, which is FarmBeats, where you'll hear Sean Stratman, a farmer, and Ranveer Chandra, who's a principal researcher at Microsoft, talking about FarmBeats.
My name is Sean Stratman, and I'm a farmer. I've been doing this a long time, and it's clear, now more than ever, that we need to find better ways of growing to ensure a sustainable future for farming. Water scarcity and agricultural pollution are all creating pressures that farmers around the world are feeling. We are looking to human ingenuity and technology to feed our growing population.
My background is in connectivity and battery technologies, but I grew up spending summers on our family farm in India. That foundation gives me a unique perspective in my work as a principal researcher at Microsoft. New sensor technology is a great tool in providing data on soil moisture and soil nutrients to help farmers make best use of their resources. Unfortunately, these sensor solutions can cost thousands of dollars per sensor and require many sensors to monitor a field properly. Drones and other imaging technologies can provide very useful data and allow for precise monitoring of land over time. But these devices require a high bandwidth wireless connection from the middle of the farm. To solve our connectivity problem, we utilize the unused channels for TV broadcasts, which are abundant in rural areas. This allows us to transfer large amounts of data from cameras and sensors in these remote areas to a local processor at the farm and out to the Microsoft cloud.
So I send this up, and it's taking pictures all the time.
Our big breakthrough was the integration of machine learning into the processing of imaging and ground sensor data. Through this process, the data insights are magnified. From 2 finite data points, we are able to create a detailed heat map of the farm. The farmer is able to access this map and utilize it to inform resource management and to track the effects of the inputs.
Having a greater understanding of soil conditions and how our actions affect them, it allows us to put the work in where it's needed. It's changing the way that we work with the land, and it's changing the way the land works for us.
Man, every time I hear that one, it just amazes me. Who thinks of these things? Like, oh, we're out in the middle of nowhere. How are we going to use communications? Oh, you can use TV waves. What? Man, there's some really freaking smart people in this world. Like, that's why I get so excited about these initiatives, just thinking what people can do with it. People much smarter than myself. So it's really inspiring to see, to know that our future isn't as bleak as a lot of people make it out to be. Technology is the great equalizer. And so if this AI for Earth and the Farm Beats kind of piqued your interest, I highly suggest checking out the AI for Earth website and looking at the other projects and checking out their videos, because there's things for like monitoring different species and the climate and monitoring things like pollution, and it's just really cool the things we can do with technology and these little connected devices called IoT that are going to be literally in everything in the near future. So it's phenomenal what Microsoft is doing and what others in those spaces are doing with the technology and the frameworks that Microsoft's building for them. So check out the AI for Earth website, link in the show notes. I think that's going to be like my hip line that I'm going to have like merch made out of. Links in the show notes. You know, it's kind of like, buy that merch. Buy that merch, y'all. All right, so 2 down, 1 to go. We've had AI for accessibility and AI for Earth. Now comes up AI for humanitarian action. Microsoft believes that AI for humanitarian action can help impact 4 critical areas, including disaster response, needs of children, refugees and displaced people, and human rights. In this short video, you'll hear from the following people: Marlene Urschuler, UN Human Rights Officer; Zaid Rahal Al-Hussein, former UN High Commissioner of Human Rights; Bai Yanbing, postdoctoral researcher from Tohoku University; Dr. Ruben Ayala, Chief Medical Officer of Operation Smile; and Michael Chalv, Principal AI Architect at Microsoft. As you listen to this short video, consider the words of Nobel Prize winner Muhammad Yunus. While technology is important, it's what we do with it that truly matters. Microsoft believes that AI can have an incredible impact on how we address humanitarian issues.
Human rights situation often deteriorate very quickly, and the faster we can get the information and we can react to the situation, it can be a real game changer.
New technologies are advancing so rapidly, and technology companies can advise us on how best to use those technologies to protect and promote human rights.
Microsoft sees opportunities for impact in 4 critical areas, including AI-improved disaster response times.
Our objective is automatic damage mapping, because after the disaster, the government needs the damage map to carry out the effective rescue. If we can save the time to grasp the ground damage information, we are able to save a lot of life and facilities.
In a new partnership with the World Bank, United Nations, and tech industry partners, we'll be better able to predict when and where famine will occur.
Second, the needs of children. Every 3 minutes, a child is born with a cleft lip or palate.
Operation Smile's vision really sinks in with what I feel is a fundamental human right.
AI will allow Operation Smile to extend its reach and help more children.
What the volunteers do for the children may seem like a small thing, but they're able to change the lives of the families forever.
Refugees and displaced people. Millions of displaced refugee youth need help building job skills.
We're creating a chatbot-based experience for refugees coming out of the Syria conflict. Purpose is to have displaced youth find a way to discover and access learning materials. You can engage directly with the course content.
And finally, human rights. Empowering organizations to help reduce human rights abuses.
It's just the beginning of the impact that we hope to have with the tools at our disposal.
And we're just getting started. Disaster response, needs of children, refugees and displaced people, human rights, AI for Humanitarian Action, Microsoft, aka.ms/AI4HA.
And Microsoft is leading by example with the AI for Humanitarian Action. Since 2009, Microsoft developed and is supporting PhotoDNA with Dartmouth College that is used by more than 200 organizations around the world. And PhotoDNA has assisted in the detection, disruption, and reporting of millions of child exploitation images and videos. PhotoDNA is an application and now a cloud service within Azure. I don't want to get too deep into it just because it's a depressing topic, but it's awesome to know that Microsoft has been able to do some amazing things with this PhotoDNA. PhotoDNA is free to use for law enforcement and tools providers. So if you have law enforcement tools or applications you're developing, you can utilize the PhotoDNA cloud service for your application and or tools. And to date, PhotoDNA has enabled content providers to remove millions of illegal photographs from the internet, has helped convict child sexual predators, and even in some cases, helped law enforcement rescue potential victims before they were physically harmed. So again, not a great subject to talk about, but amazing to know that there are people out there and technology out there fighting the good fight. And Microsoft is leading by example with PhotoDNA. And so there you have it. The 3 cornerstones of Microsoft's AI for Good initiative: AI for accessibility, AI for Earth, and AI for humanitarian action. Hopefully this gives you a better understanding of what Microsoft's doing within this AI space, what they're trying to do with empowering and enabling people to make great and drastic changes that affect the entire world, and hopefully it just makes you feel better about not only them as a company, but just know things are probably going to be okay down the line. We do have a lot of work to do when it comes to global warming and resource management and growing food and helping lesser nations catch up from the industrialization perspective. But for the most part, again, technology is a great equalizer, and Microsoft, as usual, is at the forefront of many areas within the technology spaces. Again, when you compare them with companies like Apple and Google, they're just not even in the same stratosphere about things Microsoft's touching and doing and being involved with. And a lot of that has the power of Azure at the back end. So these tool sets, again, the vast majority of them are free, so check out the show notes, go learn about them. If you're a developer, heck man, go get you guys a free $2 million grant. You know, if you do, hit me up on Twitter and let's have you on the show to talk about what you're doing exciting. That kind of gets us to where we're going. So people have been taking action and kind of doing good things on their own to help spur this change and this progress as a species as we are on this pale blue dot. So, and that brings us to our final topic for the day, which is hashtag templates for humanity. So I was browsing Twitter as I do throughout the day, and I noticed, you know, some of the Power Platform folks that I follow on Twitter, including Power BI, Microsoft Flow, etc., were talking about this Templates for Humanity. And Templates for Humanity is basically an initiative started by one man, and that man is Keith Watling. Templates for Humanity is a grassroots initiative kickstarted by Keith Watling, a digital inclusion advocate and Microsoft evangelist based in the UK. Keith was inspired after seeing the AI for Humanity video, which you just heard, from Microsoft Ignite, and spurred an action after seeing humanitarian app efforts at a recent Hack for Good event in London last week. As I said, I came across Keith's Templates for Change tweet and noticed that the great feedback and conversation that was having within the thread, which ignited the thought in my head, hey, this kind of ties into this AI for Good, because we're utilizing the tool sets, the Power Platform tool sets that can leverage AI and machine learning and those sorts of things to build these sorts of things. So it's kind of serendipitous that I just, again, stumbled upon this as I was preparing my show notes. But not only that, within the thread of the Templates for Humanity hashtag, which is, of course, linked in the show notes, people were already discussing their plans for Templates for Humanity and actually publishing their templates for humanity for the Microsoft Power Apps platform. And the elevator pitch for Templates for Humanity is basically, in a disaster scenario, people supporting the disaster or the refugees or, the people affected by the disaster are limited on time and resources. And so they're looking for cookie cutter framework type things that can easily be used, and tools that can easily be used on site and up and running quickly in disaster zones where time is of essence and people's lives are literally at stake. The Templates for Humanity, while it's spun off from a Power Apps Power Platform perspective, it doesn't have to be limited to just Microsoft. It can be anything. You have a Bootstrap website that can just be for, hey, we need donations or something like that. Like literally, it can be anything. And so it's cool to see this kind of grassroots effort start, and you literally are there at the incarnation and seeing it blossom, hopefully into something big. And I think this is a really good way to get people to start sharing their Microsoft Flow and Power Apps and templates and stuff that they're keeping internally and they're not necessarily sharing with the community. Leading by example and dipping his toe in the Templates for Humanity water was Microsoft Power Apps guru and Microsoft employee Brian Dang. Shout out to Brian Dang. He's helped me many times with my Power Apps issues on Twitter, so it's cool to see him get involved. And he actually launched and published to the Power Apps Community Gallery a volunteer pledge app. So basically, if you're looking for pledges, you can have them, you can customize this Power App really quickly, and boom, you're good to go. And not only that, another user, Mariano Gomez Bent, followed shortly with publishing one earlier today called a disease monitoring app. He says in his tweet, hopefully it can be of help to NGOs and NFPs helping out in emergency zones around the world. So if you're interested in knowing more, you can follow the Templates for Change tag at the Power Apps community, again, linked in the show notes, and the Templates for Change hashtag within Twitter, or just follow MSFT today. We're going to try to stay involved with this Templates for Humanity as it blossoms, and we'll definitely continue to monitor it and maybe even mention stuff within the show. If you build something and you want it to be featured, you want to retweet, just let at MSFT today on Twitter know, or at Brad Grew know that, hey, I've got a hashtag Templates for Humanity. Can you help spread the word? Boom, just let us know, and we'll take it from there. It's great. Big kudos to Keith Watling. He did reach out to a bunch of people. I do have a link to his blog post where he explains this, his Medium blog post. I hope you do go check out that blog post and you do give him a clap and you do give him a follow on Twitter. It's a fantastic thing that he's doing, and he is a digital inclusion advocate, so he's always looking to help empower people, and he's a Power Apps evangelist, and so he's a great follow. So kudos to the Microsoft Power Platform community who's embracing this idea, and the Microsoft team who are embracing this idea and actually getting involved, like Brian Dang. Thank you so much. And so with that, guys, I think we're kind of at the end of the show. It was a little longer than I thought. I was hoping that this would be about 15 to 20 minutes, but hopefully you found today's show A, inspirational, and B, informative. And so with that, I'll ask you for just two things at the end of this episode. Number one, please tell someone this week about the Microsoft Today podcast. If you know anyone who likes technology and innovation and automation and AI and machine learning, this podcast is going to continue to be like this, very informative. Sometimes it'll be news-based, but most of the time it's going to be informative and learning and interactive. And so please, I just ask, please tell one person each week about the podcast that you think may like it. And then number two, please follow MSFT Today on Twitter. Check out the show notes on msft.today. You can also follow Microsoft Today on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. Thank you again, guys, for all the love and the support. Jack Benall, thanks again for the kudos on Twitter and spreading the love and letting people know about Microsoft Today. Your Microsoft Today is pretty awesome tweet actually lifted me up on a really crappy day, man. So fans like you are why I do this. Hopefully we can continue to do it and continue to make things great. So hit me right in the feels. So with that, Microsoft Today fans and listeners and cohorts, I bid you adieu. Until next time, spiral out, keep going.
From Milan,